yeah, I didn't envision that this was going to take more than maybe 30 minutes tops, right? So, John Wolpert has put out the CISO the CISO, kind of 10 reasons why I would not use mainnet for my business. And so if you don't know, I got nominated to lead the security specification committee for Baseline. So I've been meeting with Kyle weekly. Ed Bradwick is also a part of that crew. And kind of one of our first orders of business, besides like really fleshing out what we think should be security focused issues within Baseline, was, well, John made such a big deal about CISO the CISO, we should probably respond to that. So we kind of went point by point, I don't know if refuting is the right word, but just kind of addressing the issues that CISO the CISO was bringing up about mainnet. What it basically boiled down to is that basically at the end of each answer, we gave a reminder that, the Baseline protocol is not intended to replace systems of record, right? That's essentially what it comes down to. We're not asking for you, nor do we advocate. We actually advocate the opposite, putting, PII data and things like that on mainnet. That's just not what we're trying to do here, right? From the questions and from some of the commentary I saw in that document, there is seems to be not a full awareness or a lack of understanding of what the mainnet can do, what it should do. And we want to make sure that we provide clarity on that, in particular with what Baseline is attempting to do here, right? No one said ditch SAP and then start using mainnet for your new ERP, right? Which I got the sense from some of those questions that that's what it seemed to be like. But we just made a good faith attempt to kind of answer those questions. And part of the breakout session was going to, at least that's what we planned, was just kind of addressing that and let the audience kind of Q&A as I go.
Yeah, and being, and it's funny, you being on the SSC and, addressing these concerns of CISOs, it's, in my conversations I've had, we just heard it from UPS today, what their concerns are over the mainnet, yet they see the value in a mainnet, but these are their concerns. And, it's immediate, you can address all those concerns immediately with one answer, just by pointing them towards Baseline and saying, we recognize your concerns, and that this is the initiative that has been started to address those things. And it's not just UPS. I had the same conversation just a day or two ago with someone else at a major corporation that was saying the same things.
Yeah, I think John saw value in like a CISO actually being part of Baseline. So like I as a CISO at Consensus, I'm like, yeah, I'm 100% on board with this. I think this is a great direction, a great initiative for blockchain as a whole. I mean, this is going to be a fundamental leap forward for blockchain, for Ethereum. I really do think 10, 15 years from now that this is that moment in history that kind of changed the game. And so, like all of you, I'm just happy to be part of it.
Yeah. Looks like someone else found us. Gina, you're welcome to introduce yourself. You can say who you're with if you'd like, or just kind of remain anonymous and listen in. So did
you guys good if I share this with anyone else? And there may be some other folks that may want to join.
Yeah. Go ahead.
More the merrier. I mean, so yeah, if you want, I'll go through the points that we had.
Yeah, well, I want you to. I think we'll give it a minute, see if Joshua has get some more company here.
Sure.
You guys had the SSC meeting this morning. How'd that?
I did not have an SSC meeting this morning.
Okay. I thought there was a meeting right before the. That's standards and specifications. That's not security. I'm sorry.
So that's all good.
Yeah. Sorry. Which?
Kyle and I usually meet on Fridays. So we're trying to get more.
Well, I'm sorry, just because there's the SSC TSC. Which committee what's the acronym for the securities one?
I guess right now security SSC.
Security, yes. Okay, so it's got an S in too. Okay, but anyways, for anyone that's following along, all that stuff. Most of the meetings are open. They're on YouTube, the Baseline YouTube channel. It's a great resource to capture all this stuff. So.
Yeah, so I'll be working with Avia and everyone to just like make sure that we get this kind of more formalized. It's just really been us saying, what are the things we absolutely need to have as part of Baseline security, right? Because we don't want to get this wrong. But as security has been in the past, sometimes it's brought in too late into the equation. And so it kind of becomes a blocker, or, you know, more significant security issues pop up, and we are doing our best to avoid those issues, right? We think we're catching this pretty early on. We're getting the right input. We're welcoming anybody who has security chops to lend a hand. And we'll go from there.
Who is it now, besides you and Kyle?
Ed Bravik. So those are the three of us.
All right, excellent. So yeah, if you want to go into your points.
Sure.
Yeah, jump right in.
So first issue we have is the data locality problem. And so what we have here is that GDPR requires that I can account for where PII data is stored, even when it's encrypted, and I need to be able to delete the data permanently upon request. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. If the data is sitting permanently on any number of nodes, not controlled by me everywhere, yeah, that's not happening, right? So that was the first concern, right? And so our response to that was that the data locality problem isn't an issue, as baseline best practices don't advocate storing any PI on mainnet. And the primary recommendations are that we really store roots and you know, DeFi, decentralized finance data on mainnet, and then really kind of nothing else, right? The baseline protocol is not intended to replace systems of record, right? So whatever you were using to handle your GDPR before, you can continue doing that, right? You know, we can have kind of breakaway conversations from that. Like if they're looking for, you know, best practices or ideas from us, we're more than happy to kind of help out with that. But with the context of what we're talking about here, that is why we don't think the data locality issue is a problem for baseline. Next up, number 2, we have the finality problem. Ethereum is an eventual consistency. If that's changing with ETH 2.0, I don't understand it. Something about a magical fast finality to something, I don't know. What I do know is that all my systems are ones where change to data is final the second it's read, right? So that was the, you know, the issue there. And so we stated here that there's no finality problem with ETH 1.0 as it becomes part of ETH 2.0 via shard inside of ETH 2.0, right? So ETH 1 for us is a building block of what Ethereum 2.0 is going to be, and will forever be part of that foundation. And again, the baseline protocol is not intended to replace systems of record. All right, so you guys got any questions, please feel free to stop me, chime in. Otherwise, I'll just keep plowing along here. All right. 3, we have the cost problem. It's not just about how much it costs per transaction or that our company isn't yet set up to hold Ether for gas. It's also about the unpredictability of the cost. And I don't want to have to go back for my degree in finance to understand stablecoins just to manage IT. So we understand the concern there. And the cost problem for what we take here is akin to something like OPEC setting worldwide oil prices. Ethereum isn't OPEC in this example. It's more the gas stations here, right? And so again, we remind people the baseline protocol is not intended to replace any systems of record, right? So, you know, I think, you know, and even as the person who put this together, you know, expressed that they don't really have that understanding, we want to make sure that we use these kind of examples like, you know, OPEC versus gas station versus what we're really trying to do here. You know, going on to number 4, the scaling problem. The often touted TPS, or transaction per second problem, is one thing, but the bigger problem for us is what happens when there are many enterprises hitting the mainnet simultaneously. Business isn't CryptoKitties, and we need to enable massive numbers of concurrent sessions, reads, and write by many parties. So the scaling problem here, which also shares the same answer with the speed and latency problem that we're going to go into later, is that testnets like Ropsten can be used to monitor for any latency issues. And most, if not all, issues that arise can be mitigated before it even hits mainnet. Keep in mind that Ethereum 2.0 was designed with increasing Ethereum's ability to address speed and latency as well. So, you know, we thought that pretty much answered the question there. Again, a reminder, baseline protocol is not intended to replace whatever systems of records that you have. So, you know, we thought that fit in pretty well there. Next up is the responsible party problem. My legal structure requires that there be a responsible party handling all aspects of my data and business logic. If I put data onto mainnet, I lose a key responsible party. And our response for that was that the responsible party problem as described here is no different on mainnet than it is any other networking environment. The instant you route traffic outside of devices you own, you've already lost that responsible party in the context of what we're saying here. So you can't really blame your network pipe because you didn't encrypt your data, which is akin to what's happening here. Reminder, the baseline protocol is not intended to replace your systems of record. You know, we're going to keep drilling that home because we want people to understand what baseline is and what it isn't. Any questions so far? I just want to make sure I'm stopping here in case anybody wanted to chime in. Nope. All right, and we plow through. Next up is the strategy leak problem. Transactions metadata can be used to game the system or collect or analyze for strategic counterintelligence or corporate espionage. In the age of AI, any trace activity done on a permanent public ledger can be used to figure out who is doing what, even if it's just little things, even if it's just little changes to Merkle trees. For us, in our response, the strategy leak problem has the same answer that the data locality problem had, which is not to store any sensitive data on mainnet. You don't stop using something like TCP/IP because you're concerned your IP is going to get revealed, and the same applies here. Again, the baseline protocol is not intended to replace your system of record. The speed and latency problem. Our CRM and ERP systems don't need the kind of transaction per second speeds of Visa or MasterCard, and even they get those CPS through parallelization, so can't fool me. But long wait times for round trip plus consensus make things I might do with the mainnet a bad user experience. The speed and latency problem, our response to that is answered in the original response that was number 4 around the scaling problem. It's still worth noting that, again, baseline is not trying to change your, or is not intended to replace your system of records. Then we move on to the privacy data problem. 80% of our data is considered sensitive, internal, or personally identifiable client, customer, or user data. Encryption isn't enough. Any data can be de-anonymized and decrypted given time, and anyone with a full node has forever to crunch the bits on the ledger. Our response there was that the private data problem, which we think we answered before in the original response, was whatever data is in place remains in place in your system of record. The baseline protocol is simply helping connect those disparate systems. And as a reminder, the baseline protocol is not intended to replace your systems of record. Number 9, we have the confidential code problem. You can't just hide the data with something like ZK snarks and think that everything is okay from a corporate perspective. Many business agreements are embodied in code, like business logic. If a machine can execute a smart contract, it can decompile and look at the logic, and that can leak sensitive info. Our response to the confidential code problem concern cites hide the data as a problem. However, this still reflects a misunderstanding of what baseline protocol is doing, which is connecting disparate systems, versus what it's not doing, which is replacing systems of record. The baseline protocol connects disparate systems, and the recommendation is to not store any sensitive data on mainnet. The baseline protocol is not intended to replace systems of record. And finally, we have the anonymous party problem. Everything I do involves access control down to the user. I can't work with a system that doesn't allow me to control who has access to a function or a piece of data, not just who can decrypt it, but who has physical access to the bits. In our response to the anonymous party problem, does not exist if the baseline protocol is being used correctly. Everyone still has access and control to their data. Assuming baseline protocol security best practices are being used, especially not placing sensitive data on mainnet, all access controls remain in place. As a final reminder, the baseline protocol is not intended to replace systems of record. And those are our responses to the top 10 CISO to CISO concerns of why I would not use mainnet. Great,
Great, Stephen. That was excellent. I have one thing for you. So, and we're talking about systems of record, you know, and you know, we can talk about those on a micro level. We can talk about them on a macro level, and that a private permission blockchain, that POC, most of them are now done on Hyperledger. Would you consider that essentially creating just a larger system of record that's still a silo? And do you think that those will remain in place as layers of security between networks, with the public, you know, mainnet still as the middleware?
Yeah, I mean, theoretically, if you're using, you know, something like a Hyperledger, but it's permissions, it's functionally no different than if it was SAP or Microsoft, right? we're just using mainnet to let those communicate between each other. So, you know, the baseline protocol could be a way for, and it is a way for even disparate blockchains, even if they're permissioned, to communicate with each other, right?
Sure.
So if you have like the conglomerate of banks, you know, that were working with like Swift or something, between themselves, let's say another group of banks who weren't originally part of that, baseline does allow for communication between them, right? That's all it's intended to do. So, yeah, so the answer to your question is yes.
Yeah, just, you know, taking, and again, I can't, you know, see as well as you do what actually goes in on the technical side, but do you need that? Will they need, in the looking further down the road, will they need that additional layer of having your own private permission network, or should everything just be on the public mainnet and just use the security protocols or, you know, baseline protocols, you know?
Yeah, well, so if you use tools like what Unibright and what Provide has done, right, they give you that interface to communicate to mainnet. So as long as you've got that process set up before you hit mainnet, that's really all you need, right? You're not reconfiguring stuff on your end. You're just making sure that, you know, Provide through something like Unibright is allowing you to connect to mainnet and finish that.
Oh yeah, I guess what I'm getting at is, do you think that people will strip away what they've done on Hyperledger and go straight to mainnet, or do you think that the Hyperledger projects will remain, just use the mainnet as a bridge with other networks?
My sense right now is that people are not going to want to tear down what they have, which, you know, again, it's your choice. Baseline is just that communication channel that lets you hit the other side. I suspect that people are going to want to keep what they've had in place, at least for the foreseeable future.
I've been talking to Kyle a lot about we need a Hyperledger adapter, you know, that you know, it's essentially using the baseline protocol just like an ERP system would.
Yeah, there's a phenomenal amount of work that goes into, and again, I can't see into everybody's instances, but, you know, I know what it's like to set up something like SAP, right? It's not a small thing.
I know. I always think, oh, it's just that easy, Kyle, you know, let's do this, let's do that. It's just, I cannot even imagine what goes into it.
And so I think that's why the baseline protocol is so cool. And, you know, things like, you know, like the demo between, you know, SAP and Microsoft Dynamics, and then more recently, the Dynamics and the Google Sheets, right? Because there's, you know, a lot to be said about how many small businesses or just kind of smaller organizations don't have ERP systems, right? Baseline allowing that kind of communication to make sure invoicing is done correctly. That's a big deal, right? And I don't know if even we've made enough big of a deal about just how important that is, right? We point to research, but, you know, I don't know if it's going to take us going to like a mom and pop shop somewhere, showing how, you know.
Listen, I've struggled through this for 3 years before I joined Provide, and I've always been involved with Provide. Provide provided me what it provides everyone else. You know, that orchestration platform and infrastructure that I need to make the blockchain stuff easy and cost effective for me to kind of navigate the space and set up my more or less systems of record. So, but I was doing it in the automotive remarketing space, you know, where they still use fax machines, and, you know, all the systems are very disparate, and they have different tools, you know, for inspections that are, you know, that are done on mobile devices, and, you know, they have to be integrated with inventory management systems, which, you know, I mean, you can only imagine in the remarketing process where they've got multiple stakeholders, from inspection companies, recon and repair, transportation companies, the title, you know, titling of it and change of ownership, to the banks, because many of these are repossessions. So you have repossession companies, you have certain compliance factors that come into place on what you can do with the vehicle. And it is just, you know, it's organized chaos in a way, but it can be a lot more efficient than trying to keep all these systems of record, especially on the compliance side, all their checks and balances. It's difficult. I was trying to simplify that, but I was just too early to switch because, you know, again, you have to address the mom and pop people that are using, you know, Excel or something else, and how everyone can work together.
Yeah, I mean, whatever people are using behind, you know, baseline, it's really up to them. But I mean, but I, as an employee of Consensus and just a fan of blockchain overall, would hope that people embrace the technology, you know, within their own borders, so to speak, and understand why blockchain is a great use case for supply chain management and how it can lower costs, why it makes sense to apply it in anything really that has to do with compliance, right? Or legal paperwork, right? Consensus obviously has, you know, business units that focus on that. And this is not I'm pitching Consensus, but it's just saying we have organizations that are working on this stuff. So hopefully, and I think probably Baseline will be a lot of organizations' first real foray into blockchain. And hopefully that kind of turns on a light for some folks and say, hey, is there more that I can do with blockchain? You know, at least that's my hope, right? You know, I share very much in the vision of our, you know, founder, CEO, Joe Lubin, in that we really do believe that blockchain can help change the future and really drive humanity to just a better place through technology, right? You know, we're always going to still have humans, obviously. Like, we're not trying to build Skynet out here. We're just trying to make sure that we use the technology at our disposal to just make the world a better place. And I'm definitely encouraged when I see things like the Blockchain for Social Impact conference going on. I see so many minds just trying to use blockchain to just help humanity. So,
yeah, I mean, it's really hard, especially if you're an advocate of it, or you see its potential and what it can do, to feel like sometimes you're the crazy person in the room. You're the one just beating your head against the wall and feeling like the outlier, to continue with that passion and vision to continue to push it forward. So I think the Baseline community has been a great space for that, and it's good to see all this collaboration.
For sure. Yeah, John and I are lucky that we're at an organization that 100% supports, you know, us going out and being part of a community like this and building it up. You know, even if it's not directly related to Consensus, right? Because I know there are going to be organizations that are working with us that we can't go public with in terms of Baseline, but we just appreciate the work, right? You know, so whatever we can do.
Yeah,